conducted under Wapaka County Resolution number 8, 2020-21, and Governor Evers Emergency Order. Number 1, please note the following information. The meeting will be broadcast for remote access on a live stream on YouTube all the info is there. This meeting may inadvertently cause a quorum of other county committees or the County Board of Supervisors. No business decisions of any other committee or Board of Supervisors will be conducted at this meeting. Participation in person is permitted. The meeting will be conducted using CDC and DHS guidance regarding social distancing. Tables and chairs will be arranged accordingly. Face coverings are encouraged. This meeting and other meetings of this committee are open to the public. Proper notice has been posted and given to the media in accordance with Wisconsin statutes so that the citizenry may be aware of the time, place, and agenda of this meeting. We have all members present. I'd like a motion to review and approve the agenda.
Second.
Motion by Fred Zog, second by Jim Nygaard. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Minutes of previous meeting, March 18th, 2021.
Approved as printed.
I'll second it.
I got a motion by Lee Muck and a seconded by Dick Rowan. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. I'm going to look around and see if anybody for public comment. Is there anybody that would like to speak that is sitting in the room? Guess we don't have any, Casey. Good. Review and approve payment vouchers.
All right. As we know, Chris is filling in for our office specialist, Sue. So as she's taking notes, let's give her our time if she's got to take notes. Amy's assisting her.
Just a minute, but she doesn't have big shoes on. You'd think when you fill in for somebody, you'd put on their shoes.
Right.
The assistant did though.
Oh, okay.
See, she's got big shoes on.
Okay.
All right. So the payment batch register is dated March 19th, 2021. We'll go through things that exceed $1,000 or more, and please ask if you've got anything questionable along the way, and I'll try to help answer them. The first one I've got is from Alpha Hydraulics. It's an invoice for $1,850.82, purchasing the hoist cylinder for unit 1195. Aaron Equipment Exchange had a bill for $2,516.87. The charges for that, which included a credit from Aaron. The other charges were for units 835, 114, 126T. Some of it got charged to our shop supplies and some to our stock account. Moving on to Brooks Tractor, we had an invoice for $1,459.29, charged to unit 1005 or 1005. Chem Search had a bill for $1,864.36. That's for our fuel treatment services charged to our fuel handling account. Fabric Cat had an invoice for $3,765.70, charged to our stock account, unit 711, 91T, and 92T. Fastenal had an invoice for $3,499.92, split amongst all of our accounts. Garo Oil Corp had an invoice for $17,687.95. That was for the purchase of diesel fuel to help stock our New London diesel fuel and unleaded gas for our New London shop. Halron Lubricants had a bill for $1,795.60 for DEF fluid charged to our Helvetia and New London shops. I-State Truck Center had invoice for $5,995.65 charged to our stock account and then also to unit number 47. Mansfield Oil Company sold us diesel fuel for $16,787.14. Charged to our stock account at our Helvetia shop. Martinson and Isley had an invoice for $6,265.75. That was charged back to the town of Caledonia as we are in the process of working with the town of Caledonia on a project, Crosswinds,
Woodland Hills subdivision.
I get Crosswinds and Woodlands Hills separated. So we're doing some survey work for Martin and Isley, which gets charged back to the town of Caledonia, which is lining up to potentially be a good construction project on our towns this spring. So Miller Bradford had an invoice for $2,474.14 charged to unit 116. Monroe Truck Equipment had a bill for $1,251.82 charged to our stock account. O'Reilly Auto Parts out of Springfield Packer City International Truck had an invoice for $1,102.42 charged to unit 1130. Survey Implement Municipal Sales had an invoice for $6,989.63 charged to our stock account, and then also to unit 2065M. Lower, we've got Spiegelberg Implement had an invoice for $9,627.30 charged to our unit 117. Stump Ford had an invoice for $1,354.27 charged to unit 65. Tenant Sales and Service Company had a bill for $1,307.29 charged to our Buildings and Grounds account. Did some maintenance on our riding floor scrubber squeegee. We Energies had an invoice for $1,470.65. That's the propane gas at our Larrabee shop. Westwood Professional Services had invoices for multiple projects that they're performing for us for $12,655. Portion of it is for our reclaim, shape and pave profile modifications on Q, N phase 2, and then County Highway O box culverts. And the Wisconsin Department of Transportation had an invoice for $1,503.93, which is their oversight for the County B bridge design in Scandinavia. And then we received a credit back from an older bridge project, which occurred, I believe, in 2016 or 17 of $91.46. And so we applied that credit back to a current bridge design taking place on Highway B. So overall payment for this payment batch register was $117,051.96.
Need a motion to approve the amount of $117,051.96.
Also move.
Motion by Lee Muck, second by Fred Zog. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Review and approve asphalt price for 2021 paving season.
Agenda number 2, Joe, that's backup one.
Oh,
Review and discuss the RFPs for the Larrabee shop.
I don't have that on my agenda.
Yeah, mine neither.
I have asphalt pricing next.
I have number 2 is asphalt pricing.
Do you have Larrabee shop later?
Yeah.
Okay, I got it backwards. I must have an old one from when we were first creating it. My fault. So agenda.
Review and approve asphalt prices for 2021 paving season.
Yep. Nathan, you must have my good one, huh?
Don't throw him under the bus.
Don't
blame him. I must have, I need to switch with Nathan, so I got the right one. I thought I had the same copy, so I shared it with our intern. I'll give
I keep tabs on him there.
We're good.
Way to go, Nathan. Way to check out, make sure he's on board.
On his toes, right?
Yeah, that's
All right. So as we're moving into bidding out all of our materials, one of the things we held off on was our asphalt pavement bids, as that was kind of required or asked of all of our suppliers. They said, just hold on. And so we did that. And what it resulted in is what you see up on the screen, the layout of all of our asphalt prices. And I know that it's complicated. There's a lot of suppliers, but to make it simple, our asphalt price per ton went down. What are you thinking, Greg? Not quite $2 a ton it went down. So that's good for us. So what we do in our figuring of what we want to charge out price per ton, we're trying to recover our bituminous expenses. And one of the things that we have to recover this year is the depreciation of a new paver. So even though the asphalt prices went down, not quite $2, we calculated the depreciation on that new paver that's coming in. We threw that into the mix. And we made the decision that we're going to set the price per ton at $44 a ton, which is the same as it was last year, right?
It was 46 last year.
46, we're going down to 40.
I think we probably should go to like 44, 35 or something.
So
It'll be a decrease.
yeah, that we were optimistic and we're thinking, let's go 42 something, let's go 43. And then after we threw in the depreciation of the paver, it moved us up to the $44. And so, Chris, I think you calculated $43.96 would recover us to be safe. So we're thinking $44 a ton. If we went up to 35, that might be pushing it a little bit, but we don't want to set a price and just superly over recover because we want to be competitive.
How many tons are we talking?
With
50,000 probably.
tons.
And why did you say 35 versus?
Well, so we added in the paver, and I think the number that Chris had was to break even based on our numbers last year would have been a $44.12. And one of the mixes we want to haul on I is 44.35. So now that it's a little higher just to,
I think we need to think about that then.
Yeah.
but
If we set it at 44.35, that's good.
Are you comfortable with that?
I'm comfortable with being competitive so that when we're seeing a lot of our customers, which are townships, they're actually comparing us to them. What's our price per ton? And so I don't want to go over recovery and I don't want to under recover. I want to be just at profit.
Dick, are you okay with something like this? You understand the town boards?
I want to be competitive so we get work, right? Which keeps our trucks moving. And if we aren't keeping our trucks moving because we're asking too much price per ton, well, then it affects our equipment operations. And so
Yep.
there's two ways of looking at
I
it.
want to hear what the township thinks.
I think that would be all right. I don't think we have a whole lot of problem because
Because, it's all split up among many townships,
Right.
just so that we're all on the,
yeah,
I'm thinking if you do a raise, just make it a nickel or something and play it safe, but protect yourself a little bit. We don't have to get greedy, but at the same time, we gotta make sure we got our costs covered. So that's just my thought.
okay with this?
Yeah, no, I just look at it. At those prices, some are 45, I don't understand,
It's up to us to make the recommendation. 44.35 is a safe number. Let's go with it.
Recommendation.
44.35 a ton on the asphalt.
You making that?
Yes, I am.
Jim Nygaard made the motion.
Second.
Second by Fred Zog. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Very good. Next, we'll move into agenda item number 3, which is to review and approve the resolution for Work Zone Safety Awareness Week. And we do this annually. Sometimes it's after the fact. Unfortunately, we're getting ahead of the ball game here. So
That should be being passed around and signed because I had it. And the reason I didn't jump on item 3 on the agenda is because your agenda sheet's different than mine.
not anymore. So I'll go up here and I'll read it just because I can read when I'm closer to it. But it's important that we recognize the safety of our employees, and not only at a highway committee level, but at a county board level too. So this will go to a county board, and this is happening amongst all the counties within Wisconsin. So resolution number 3 for 2021 and 2022 recognizes Work Zone Safety Awareness Week. The Wisconsin County Highway Association is asking all 72 counties in the state to unite and kick off Work Zone Safety Awareness Week with a resolution and campaign to raise awareness for its workers, the traveling public safety workers, and those of various highway contractors performing work for the counties. Whereas the construction and maintenance activities on our streets and highways periodically require that work zones be established. And whereas in Wisconsin, there is an average of 2,677 work zone crashes each year. And there have been over 13,000 crashes resulting in 5,200 injuries and 50 deaths over the past 5 years. And whereas Last year in 2019, Wisconsin suffered from nearly 2,500 crashes in road construction and maintenance zones, resulting in nearly 900 injuries and 17 fatalities. Whereas between 2014 and 2018, there were 67 fatalities recorded as a result of crashes in work zones, including 3 Wisconsin County highway workers who were killed in work zones back in 2015. Whereas through their enforcement activities and other participation, the Wapaka County Sheriff's Office, Wisconsin State Patrol, and Wapaka County Highway Department are committed to working together in 2021 to make Work Zone Awareness Week a success. And whereas the Federal Highway Administration has designated the week of April 26th through April 30th as National Work Zone Awareness Week, now therefore it be resolved by the Wapaka County Board of Supervisors that the week of April 26th through April 30th, 2021 be designated as Work Zone Safety Week in Wapaka County. So that's it.
That should have went around that everybody should have signed it. Okay. Casey, and I know I see this sometimes, especially out on 10, you know, you'll used to have a squad out there once in a while sitting, and I'm sure we got enough vacant squads around here, but I don't think we can ever be safe enough. You know, I don't, you know, when I look at 161 Iola, that area, you know, when you're crack filling in that there with those hills and that, you know, you worry, you know what I'm saying? It just, we've got many small roads or real deep ditches and not a lot of room. So, you know, whatever you can put vehicles out or whatever, you know, you have my blessing.
So enforcement is a big part that helps us, and the state of Wisconsin has updated their uniform traffic manual, which is another guide for all counties to have uniform traffic controls, so that as a pedestrian, a person driving up on the work zone recognizes the same thing if Wapaka County is doing it versus Shawano County versus a private contractor. And so you'll see a lot of private contractors now or utility companies upgrading their safety zone stuff, because it's not just us, it's all entities that are out there on the highway. So
You know, it just amazes me how they fly on 10, and I don't spend much time on 10, but it's crazy out there.
need to make a motion to approve that.
I need a motion to approve.
Also move.
Second.
Lee Muck made the motion, Jim Nygaard seconded it. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Number 4, review and approve O'Brien Mitigation Bank Monitoring and Maintenance Bond.
Yes, and so what occurs at our O'Brien site, which was a wetland mitigation bank for offsetting the wetland disturbances on construction projects, County I and County T, is our department was required to have a construction bond of $122,000. And so that if we didn't construct the O'Brien site like the DNR was requiring, they would take our money. And so Babcock Solutions is a company that we work with our bonding on, and we've satisfied it. So remember a couple of years ago when we got the letter, hey, you're non-compliant with constructing this O'Brien site, your fine may be coming. Well, the fine did not come. But I just wanted to read this because it's a big deal for us. It's from the DNR wetland specialist. It says the DNR has completed a review of our as-built report for the O'Brien wetland site, and we don't have any major comments at this time. In light of this, we agree that the bond held for the construction activities at this site should be released. Prior to us taking this step forward, we wanted to check to see if a bond had also been secured for the maintenance activities. And so now we're required to maintain that site, do herbicide spraying occasionally, monitoring it for hydrology as it's going through its next 5 years of maintenance oversight to make sure it functions the way it was designed. And we have to be bonded for that, but it significantly reduces it down to $20,000 per year. And so in the past, the new maintenance bond was signed by Supervisor Fleece, the chair of the Highway Committee, and it was signed by Dick Keppen, the County Board Chair. We're going to follow that same process with the maintenance bond, but I thought it was important that we approve the maintenance bond moving forward. I think we were paying about $131 a year or right around there to have a construction bond. for 130 some thousand. Now we're significantly reducing it to be bonded for $20,000. And so that's a charge that we have to compensate for our projects.
So there'll be a minimum premium. I mean, it's not gonna go down,
It,
way down.
it's gonna be reflective based off of the cost of the bond. And so in order for me to send this to Joe and to Dick Keppen, we need a resolution passed at Highway Committee approving to have a maintenance bond for the O'Brien site.
I will move to approve that.
I'll second it.
A motion by Fred Zog, second by Jim Nygaard, approve the bond, all in favor? Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Next, we have review and discuss RF fees received for Larrabee Space Needs Study.
Okay, so request for proposals for space needs is a packet that's. Let's start with the project. So if you can recall, maybe 6 months ago or so, we said that we had some significant repairs projected at our Larrabee shop. The roof was in need of repairs. And so the roof contractor asked us, what do you want to do? We said, let's just stick a small investment to repairing the 3 spots. There was 12 different old skylights in that roof. And at the same time, the Marion Wayside was coming up for sale. DOT offered it to us. We said, we don't know. We have to go through a space needs study. And so the space needs study results came in for 3 architects. Up on the screen, you're going to see the cost proposal for McMahon. Scroll down as I'm talking about this. McMahon's space needs study came in at $33,620. The second one came in from Barrientos for $18,265. And then our third one, which was our lowest, came in from Keeney Architects for $8,500. This isn't to design the new facility. This is to do an assessment of our current Larrabee shop, if the location of that facility will suffice for a potential project years down the road, or if the Marion Wayside is going to be feasible spot to potentially move the Larrabee shop. So the low bid came in at $8,500. It was required that all interested firms meet us on site at the Larrabee shop and then take a tour over to the Marion Wayside. These 3 firms all met that requirement. Keeney Architects has a heck of a resume. I don't think that they are by no means can't perform the same work that Barrientos or McMahon could provide. Their cost at this time was cheaper. But at the same point, the Marion Wayside or the Wisconsin Department of Transportation reached out to me and said, hey, Highway Commissioner from Wapaka County, you hear that you're doing a space needs study for the Wayside. Can you get us a result by July of 2021? Well, previous to that, I put out this space needs study and said, we're going to give you until October, November to complete your study. So the state is saying, make a decision by July. And so if I'm going to go with Keeney Architects to help us do a space needs study, I'm going to ask them up front, could you have some results to us by July, or it don't pay for us to even invest $8,500 in it if the DOT is going to sell it to us in the midst of us doing our space needs assessment. But every booklet came back in saying that the Larrabee shop would essentially not suffice as enough square footage, especially if we're looking for services such as water and sewer. You just don't have that out there. I don't know, it's a decision, but we aren't going to be able to learn anything more unless we ask someone to do a space needs assessment for us. The space needs assessment doesn't mean we have to buy the Marion Wayside. It doesn't mean we have to do significant improvements anytime soon at the Larrabee shop, but it gives us a good idea for future planning 10 years down the road. And it would give us a good footprint that says you need this much space. And so my recommendation to the committee is to go ahead with the space needs assessment. That way we at least have an idea of ballpark. It's $8,500. They're going to do an evaluation of the Larrabee shop more in depth. They're going to have multiple meetings with myself and our operations and Mark Korth specifically on the amount of equipment that in personnel that we're going to have at that facility for the next for eternity if counties keep having highway shops.
I'm in favor of doing that, but I do think we want to keep the arm on the state to make sure they can give us a price, because there's no way this is going to go through county board with an open checkbook or,
No.
you know what I'm saying?
Wow.
And right now they've not done that, and we're also out trying to evaluate what it's worth to sell it, weren't they? Casey, is my understanding.
So I wanted to share this as well. The Wisconsin DOT said that the Marion Wayside was assessed value at $300,000. But the realtor that works for the Wisconsin DOT said because it could potentially be used for transportation services, they have the obligation to sell it less than the assessed value if your department is inclined to make an offer for the facility. If the offer is $1, if the offer is $2, I don't know, but it's, we don't know if it's even gonna fit our needs until we do a space needs study.
I think for our own protection, we need to do the space needs study so that people aren't just saying, well, you got an agenda, you want to do another building project. This will give credibility to whatever decision we do down the road. By having this independent Keeney architects or whoever we end up going with.
Dick, how do you guys feel about it?
Casey,
Fred or Dick?
why would, well, I mean, McMahon's got a good reputation. Why would they be 4 times as much as Keeney?
Fred, when you got a lot of work, you don't need the job.
Ah,
I got a lot of friends in business, and I'll tell you right out, when I don't have work, boy, I bid stuff low so I keep the boys going. When I got a lot of work, I'll bid her high, and if I get it, wonderful.
And a space needs assessment can be done by an architectural firm that has low overhead costs. They might only have 2 or 3 employees that can provide the services. If you get into larger firms, they have a lot of overhead costs and a lot of building maintenance. McMahon could provide the same service as Kinney with their booklet and their report come out to be looking like a castle compared to a building, maybe. I think the same services can be provided for $8,500 in this scenario. It doesn't obligate us at any point to start a design or build. It's just to tell us what we would need. To repair the roof at that facility was $250,000. To find out if that's a good investment for $8,500 might be worth its dime. That's my opinion. We paid $7,500 to have Gray Architects do a space needs study for this facility here, but we had already bought the land in 2012. And it had caveats to move on to, they would get the design of this facility as well, which was $1 million contract. This doesn't have that $1 million contract tied to it. This is just to do a space needs assessment.
Do I have a motion?
Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I'll make a motion to go ahead with awarding the bid to Keeney Architects to do the space needs study for the Larrabee Highway Department needs.
second,
Motion by Jim Nygaard, second by Fred Zog, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Go ahead, Casey, see what you find out. I don't know if there's any way you can get more out of the state. The last thing I'd ever want to do is have to go to the county board and say we need $350,000 or whatever.
Right.
Oh, ain't gonna fly, especially with our 2020 season that we had, which is gonna be a whole hour presentation here coming up.
Right, but anyway, just, that's my gut reaction. That's not everybody.
Yeah.
Feelings.
I guess the other thing would be, we can buy it for $1, whether we could turn around and sell it in 5 years.
That would be a different story.
Absolutely not.
You can make it into
We
a.
only could sell it to someone who's gonna utilize it for transportation services.
Yeah.
We can't buy it and sell it to someone else that the city of Marion maybe would be able.
So define transportation services. Is it governmental for maintenance? Is it a trucking company or? Little vague there.
I'll give you a far-fetched one.
Let's not
Casey. How
worry about that
a-
now.
A city county building at the same time. The city of Marion needs a new project building for their city equipment. I mean, I'm just way out there, whether you would even think about it or not.
And so does the city of Clintonville.
Yeah. So,
Yep.
Just long range thinking, if we,
Partnering.
you know,
Don't worry about it till we have it.
yeah, but if we could get that wayside at a reasonable price, which sounds like you can, and if we split it with the city of Marion, if we don't need it all or something, that would be one thing to think about is if you could split it with the city of Marion. I don't know. I'm thinking all kinds of odd things here, but
So the Marion Wayside has water and it has sewer. But it might not be feasible water and sewer to supply the demand of us power washing our trucks. Or maybe there's lift stations, maybe they're not in good conditions. This whole space needs studies gonna tell us.
yeah. I would assume it has a lift station because that's low and the system is higher in Marion.
The DNR surface water data viewer shows that a portion of it is wetlands. That's gonna tell us maybe them are unbuildable areas. That's a whole.
Yeah.
That's why it's beyond my level of expertise or time. For $8,500, this would help us.
Yeah, no.
So we're all set with that then?
Yep.
We have any more discussion on that?
Well, we had it as an agenda item to review and discuss.
That's all right. You got direction from us whether you need to.
I need to discuss it with them, yeah.
Okay. Moving on to number 6, review 2020 financial schedules and PowerPoint.
Okay, so this is gonna take about an hour. It is my first kick at the cat at giving our financial presentation in a different way than I've given it for 2015s with Lance and then 16, 17, 18, 19. So this is different than what I've done for the last 5 years, of which I've just had my 5-year anniversary. So we're looking at making some changes, satisfying a couple requests that have come from our staff, that have come from highway committee members, that have come from the public to understand how our operations works. And so I'm going to go through it. And by no means is this the final one. I'm asking you to critique it, give me feedback. Chris is asking for feedback from Heidi. This isn't the final report. And why I say that, because I brought this up at the highway commissioners meeting. And at the highway commissioners meeting, they feel that this is necessary to give down at the summer road school. So this presentation is at its infancy stages of me presenting it to the entire state of Wisconsin. As 60% of highway commissioners in Wisconsin have 5 years or less of experience. And there's no guide on how to be a highway commissioner, but I think this is the start of it. And so we're going to go through it page by page, slide by slide. Please ask questions along the way. And Chris is going to take notes of stuff that you like as a committee or you don't like as a, you feel it's irrelevant. And there are some things we've already identified and we'll kick off. And so I'm essentially using you as my guinea pig. So welcome to the Wapaka County Highway Department financial components, financial schedule for 2020. My name is Casey Beiersdorf. I'm the highway commissioner here. Helping me with this report is my office account manager, Chris Carlin. She's been instrumental in helping me create this report with feedback from myself and our operations manager and also our accounting staff. All of us are plugging in our knowledge. So, and the reason it's dated June 8th is because that's the day of the summer road school.
You didn't send out any sign up stuff on that yet.
No, the sign up for the summer road school is due by May 7th.
So we'll get it before
So
then.
we'll end up handing that registration packet out, yeah.
Okay.
But just kicking off very, very upfront, we're thinking that this slideshow is going to be a reference for others to use. And so upfront, first slideshow, we're saying there's there's different numbers that we associate to Wapaka County, to different cost pools and information we need. These numbers are only relevant to Wapaka County. The Uniform Cost Manual references these numbers in different aspects. And I don't know, is
Casey, if I could interject, the screen is the room. It's not the PowerPoint on YouTube.
Thank you.
Yep, thanks.
All right.
Please hold while I fix that. But I don't know what I'm doing.
So we need to share our screen.
Share screen. And then now you'll have to go to the slideshow. Yep, there you go.
See it now?
Yes, thank
Let's
you.
go back. Let's go back to the front page just to show Diane and our audience. I don't know who's all on our audience on the online. Is Heidi on?
She is, but you can go ahead where you left off. That's fine.
Okay,
Thanks.
so here's page one. It's the front cover of our slideshow. Page two, some references. If someone's trying to look up something quick in relation to any of our cost pools, we give a little bit of data to say, hey, go to, chapter 0, 2, 20, 80 in the Uniform Cost Manual. So next. Wapaka County Highway Department, what do we administer? This is the financial backbone of how we operate, and it can be complicated at times until you understand it and break it down in a scenario where a new highway commissioner or operations manager or foreman can understand it. We've kind of put this slideshow or even highway committee in the terms where it makes sense visually. So things that our highway department oversees is our highway operations fund right here on top. The highway operations fund is our checkbook. That's how we function year in and year out. We watch the highway enterprise fund. We get caution when the balance is going low, which is occurring this year. And we watch it if the operations fund is getting too high. We may have auditors that come in and say, hey, you might want to bring that down. And so I just wanted to say that it's not just the fund itself. It's made up of a whole bunch of cost pools. And so down here below, our highway operations is an entity of our buildings and grounds cost pool, highway administration, fuel handling, shop operations, pit and quarry, bituminous, salt brining, fringe benefits, small field tools, equipment operations, and our capital purchases. Each one of these small little bubbles can make or lose a profit. You can have a profit or a loss, and that affects your bottom dollar, which is your highway operations, all monitored within your highway enterprise fund. And then over to the right is more of our yearly stuff. It also has highway committee approvals that took place, and it moves up to finance committee and county board, but it's more of another cost pool, which is our transportation services fund cost pool. If you can recall, routine maintenance is a certain dollar amount that we try to budget every year. Winter maintenance is something we try to balance every year. Our salt shed maintenance, marking and signing, our bridge maintenance, our construction projects. And then we also have year-end adjustments in there. That's all part of our transportation services fund that we're monitoring and should be monitoring more often than we were. So we're looking at doing it quarterly, maybe even monthly. If there's a question on a big purchase, we're going to jump into our transportation services fund and say, how are we doing annually? How does that affect the overall enterprise fund as a big picture? It's all cost pools. And so we also monitor the 50-50 bridge aid. Diane, can you see when I'm marking up this board? Like when I make a check?
Yes.
Okay, so the 50-50 bridge aid right here, that is something also our department administers. We're going to go in depth on every one of these subjects, but the 50-50 bridge aid, the highway operations, and the transportation services fund are all things that we watch as a financial administrating, making decisions off of. So let's go to slide 2. Slide 2 tells a little bit more about internally at our highway department and many other county highway departments, how do we gather all this information? And the main tool that we have, which is a free software program offered from the Wisconsin Department of Transportation, is our CHEMS program right here. That's what Chris is watching. That's what Larry Abraham's watching. That's what Jan Beckman's sending information to. Mark Korth is utilizing it for equipment reports. CHEMS is a program or a software program offered free from the Wisconsin DOT, utilized by many counties, and some counties choose not to use them. That's for our internal monitoring. We need to be the specialists of the CHEMS program. There's also software programs that interlink into the CHEMS program. That includes RT Vision. RT Vision is what we use to fill out the employees' time cards, how much equipment was charged to which project. That is our payroll. Payroll then gets approved typically daily if everything's approved from supervisors. Usually it might take 2 days. That's where Amy Potts and the managers every day are going into it, approving employees' time. Once it's good to go, it gets sent into CHEMS so that we know what employee and what equipment is chargeable to a certain project that's been preloaded into the CHEMS program. Below that, right here, we've got our Fuel Master system. Fuel Master is another software program that's gathering data from our outlying shops and our home shop here in Wapaka. And when an employee pulls up to the pump and puts diesel into it or puts unleaded fuel into the vehicle, that's all information gathered using the Fuel Master system so that we know how to expend our expenses to our equipment. Then it goes back into CHEMS and it gets recorded there. That's where Mark can pull information out of for changing oil on equipment, which is done by the amount of gallons we put in our equipment versus the miles or hours. We've got another computer software system called Advanced Weighing Systems. Advanced Weighing Systems is all of our outlying scales. That's why when we built this new facility, we had so many upgrades at our satellite shops because the information brought back to this facility through the advanced weighing system had to be upgraded to match into the new system here at Wapaka. What it's doing is, as an employee goes across the scale with a certain truck, he weighs the gravel or the salt or the sand or whatever we're hauling that day. He gets out and goes into that little booth. He plugs in his employee ID number, the truck number that's hauling that piece of material. He enters what type of material it is, and then he leaves and then gathers typically a scale ticket. Well, that scale ticket is then collected by the foreman on the job, or at the end of the day, it all ends up with Jan Beckman, our accountant. And she's looking at all them scale tickets, which is something she's physically holding on to. And she's also comparing them against the computer software program that was all that information was sent to her. And she may have questions such as, this doesn't look right. You charged out asphalt in the middle of winter. Maybe it was supposed to be sand. She's double checking to make sure before she sends it to CHEMS that it's the right material. Up over here to the right, we use the CHEMS system for inventorying all of our repair parts, our tires, our batteries. CHEMS keeps that. That's where Larry Abrahamson gets involved a lot. And then over here, you've got accounts payable. That's where Jan a lot of times is taking journal entries from gravel that we bought and asphalt that we bought. We get bills sent to us from the outlying vendors that did not make it in any of these software programs to the left, and she's imputing them journal entries to a certain project number that's been preloaded in CHEMS for basically our vendors' invoices. So what do we get out of CHEMS with all the information we put into it? We get customer invoices, whether it's to the DOT, Sheriff's Department, other departments. That's how we generate our town's invoices. It helps create our cost pools. We get data for reports and general ledger items. That's how we export our payroll and send it over to the courthouse, which has a whole nother program that CHEMS integrates with. That's called Logos. We'll talk about that a little bit later. The periodic and year-end reporting gets reported out of CHEMS. And then Our preventive maintenance is reported out of chems. That's more of when oil changes and maintenance on equipment needs to be looked at, transmission flushes, stuff like that. That chem system sits here as a highway department software program. Information gets sent over to Logos. So when I'm hearing from like finance committee, you might be sitting in there and say, getting a report from Heidi, looking at all departments. She may be saying, hey, I didn't get no information from chems recently. I can't see it in their chems software. I rely on Logos, the general budget ledger. And she's saying, we need to be sending this more often. So that's our responsibility internal to keep chems as up to date as we possibly can with Logos, which is what you're seeing over at our finance department. Next, let's talk about cost pools. Cost pools, again, is a reflection of each individual business or function within our business. It's unique to highway accounting versus general government accounting, but it's been done for years and it's going to continue happening for years. So it's utilized to collect costs to specific functions, which provide services to various other programs within the department. The expenses of the cost pools are transferred to specific programs and projects, whether it's a percentage of direct labor, a rate per hour basis, or a unit production cost. It generates what we're going to charge for sand the following year, asphalt the following year, brine the following year, our surcharge that we put on fuel to recover our fuel costs. Expenses not recovered in our charge out, say we under recover, gets absorbed by our highway operations. Our enterprise fund can take a hit if we're losing money in each one of these cost pools. What we ultimately want to prevent is subsidizing. We don't want to be absorbing too many costs so that the towns or municipalities or even ourselves have employees and equipment on staff ready to work, but no one's hiring us to do it. We can't afford to do that. Next. So we're going to break down the cost pools independently. The cost pools independently, we have them identified in colors so that each slide kind of represents the color. It shows diversity versus the same cost pool being the same thing. A reflection on 2020's cost pools, just an overview. In our buildings and grounds account, our total cost way up here on top in 2020 was $952,322.55. $2,700,379, or about a third of it, was billed to the Transportation Services Fund because buildings and grounds get allocated out to different cost pools. We have highway administration costs in 2020 of $860,000. Fuel handling, we had some under recoveries of $136,000. The under recovery of our fuel handling got billed to our shop operations, which is a whole nother accounting discussion later. Our shop operations had a total cost of $837,000. Our pit and quarry took a net loss in 2020 of $48,000. We'll go into each one of these. Our bituminous, which I can't see on here quite, Chris.
Light it up a little.
Hide that. Our bituminous operations did well. Every year, we're going to go in more depth with that. We made, I think,
60.
About 60,000.
64,138.94.
Couple extra cases of beer for the
Our
guys.
brine operations is new to our department. So for us to look back at last year's brine prices compared to what the costs were, it's so new to us. We definitely are going to increase our brine price though.
We had a loss of 20,998.96.
Fringe benefits, we've under recovered on our fringe benefits. Fringe benefits get applied to next year's fringe benefit rate. So the under recovery on that will be recovered the following year. Small tools, we under recovered in the reimbursement of charging that out. It'll be applied to next year's rate to recover it. And then our equipment operations took a net loss of $256,122.88. Our capital purchases in 2020 were $1.7 million, almost $1.8 million. And our buildings and grounds improvements. So if we're improving things within our buildings and grounds, that gets charged or quantified in the capital purchases. So all these cost pool losses show the big blue bubble in the middle. We started on our unassigned balance of 3.9 million, and we're down to $2.1 million. We're going to talk about that individually as to how we got to that point. All right. This slideshow is probably, or this slide is very important. It's important to understand that in order to have this facility and everything within this fence has a cost. Not only does it have a cost in Wapaka, it has a cost in Larrabee, Helvetia, and New London. And we have to account for those costs inside this building. And we're going to break them individually down here in a little bit and how we recover those costs. Next. Let's go to the next one. So our buildings and grounds account, how does it work? How does it function? Buildings and grounds is accumulation of the depreciation of the buildings, the depreciation of the improvements within the buildings. So let's say something's been depreciating or we bought it new. And then 15 years later, we had to add a new roof to the Larrabee shop. Well, the cost of that new roof, which would be an improvement to that building, even though the building's not new, we start depreciating the improvements that took place with that expenditure. It also includes our utility costs, telephone, maintenance costs, and insurance. In 2020, we had a buildings and grounds cost of $998,000, which is about $400,000 more than the 5-year average. And it's a direct reflection of having a new highway shop. What we take out of those costs is we take out the salt storage costs, the depreciation and utilities and maintenance. And so when you minus out your salt storage costs, you're looking at in 2020, $46,000. Our 5-year average in salt storage costs was right about the $32,000. Next, we look at what does that equal? It equals what we need to allocate out, or how are we going to recover a profit or a loss in the two different entities up above. So 100% of it's allocated based out on the square footage, and square footage is going to come up later. So if you're looking over here at highway administration, just to kind of cheers. Highway administration, we currently have 9,091 square feet of highway administration space. That everything inside the fence, particularly related to highway administration. Our shop operations, we currently have 48,798 square feet. Fuel handling, we've got 13,970 square feet. Equipment storage, 115,000. Bituminous has increased to 3,300 square feet. You might ask, what's 3,300 square feet in bituminous? That includes areas where we store patching mix outside of our shops. And then brine making, which we have a brine making room now, that has a square footage of $2,400. And so I thought it was interesting to see where were we at back in 2015 compared to 2016. Overall, we've increased our square footage 84,462 square feet. That means we became bigger. It came with an expense, and we use those square footages to calculate out some of our allocations. Next. This is just a breakdown of our buildings and grounds and how we calculated our 5-year averages. Next. All right, let's talk specifically about the cost of having an administrative staff. It skips ahead. So right here is our administration. How do we account for having an administration, not only of the building, but all of the things that go along with it? Next. Next. Highway administrations is all the costs associated with administration, such as the commissioner's wages, of which when I charge my time on admin, sometimes I charge my time directly to construction projects or other projects that we're working on. Fringe benefits, travel expenses, the committee's per diem and expenses, commissioner's vehicle expense, which is like the one vehicle that gets charged to admin. That's the way it is. Office supplies, that's where we're watching how many pens and papers we purchase, how much printing we're doing at our off of our printers, which I think we have 4 of them. Audit fees, anything administrative related, them are all costs. And in 2020, we had $509,000 of costs in our administration. That's an increase roughly of about, I don't know, what is that? $90,000 compared to our 5-year average. Again, a big part of that is the buildings and grounds allocation. Because we have such a big building, a percentage or a square foot percentage gets allocated back to administration off of that. It's all square footage related. And how do we recover our costs? We do it through an administration rate. So every time we send out an invoice to, is it ourselves,
Everybody,
the towns,
state.
the municipalities, every time we send out an invoice, we tack on in 2020 a 4.21% rate. So think about that. It never snowed in January, February, hardly in October, November, and December in 2020. We spent about $953,000 less in invoicing out to our towns, of which we cannot tack on now that 4.21% rate to collect back to help cover them costs. We were outfitted with accountants to send out invoices to them to help control that.
Casey, just question,
Yeah.
at 4.21, what was it 2 years ago, 3 years ago? I mean, just a ballpark figure, we increased it, did we not?
Only 2 something back then.
I mean, I just,
This administration rate set by the state.
The-
Last year was actually 4.56, was it not? Not
okay,
4.21.
all right, so,
Well, the average of it is 4.45 for the last 5 years.
okay, all right.
And we
okay.
only charge 2% to the towns, villages and
In the past. Right.
Well, and currently.
currently.
Yeah, okay,
We're undercharging them.
that's
Yep.
my ballpark.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, keep going,
Rate was 4.45%.
okay.
Our rate was what, 4.56%?
I think last,
4.56.
But were we not charging anything and we added that
Correct.
2? Was it, that's where we put the 2 on?
correct.
Just started.
Okay, that's right. That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, okay, keep going.
So before we
We
were
know.
even collecting that.
That presentation here, but
And so when you look at that, 900,000 and we did an invoice for 4% of that, plus you're talking 4,000 a year, $36,000 right there on office stuff. We didn't recuperate anything.
yeah,
I rounded everything.
We do have the decision-making power at this committee level to charge the same rate to our municipalities as we do ourselves in the state. We have that right, but we just increased it slowly.
yeah.
So let's say we take a loss in this cost pool. Who absorbs it? Our highway enterprise fund does. Our bottom line. Next. Also part of administration is our radio expenses, our general public liability insurance, patrol supervision, which a portion of it for Greg and Hank is reimbursable from the DOT. I think the DOT pays for 45% of it and the county absorbs pays the other 55% of it. We do dabble a little bit with charging the state for administering the county's local road improvement program. That's not a lot. I think, here back in 2020, we only had $538. But once we get into a year where it's an LRIP year, which is coming up all your odd years, we tend to have a lot more expenses then. Any over or under recoveries is absorbed through a highway enterprise fund. Next. Here's a breakout of how we got the numbers.
Very hard to read.
Next. Next, let's move down here to our fuel islands, our fuel handling. Next. So the cost of having fuel comes with a bunch of things all compiled together. It comes with fuel delivery, because we do deliver fuel to our construction projects, and we have a man that has fringe benefits that's chargeable to fuel. The fuel truck costs, we have one here at our shop. Depreciation of fuel bulk storage. and buildings and grounds allocation based off the square footage allocated to this account. How do we recover our fuel costs? We recover it by setting a fuel rate surcharge. And so when we buy it price per gallon, our department takes last year's costs, we divide it by the amount of gallons sold, and we tack on 40 cents a gallon last year. All right, so we still have the fuel truck, we still have fuel islands, we have people delivering it to construction projects, but we burned about 70,000 gallons less of diesel fuel last year in 2020. Relative to snow plowing, there was not much of a change for summer. Relative to snow plowing, we're unable to tack on that 40 cents on that 70,000 gallons. So that's what, $28,000, I'm thinking. That's something that we did not generate revenue in on to help recover the cost of having all these fuel systems. And our fuel systems are great. We just went through an emergency management situation with the county's emergency management. And it's good that we have spread out fuel within Wapaka County. Now, if they start asking, do we want to back them up with generators? That all comes with the cost. We don't have that budget. We do have backup generators here in Wapaka, which is one of the only backup fuel stations in all of Wapaka County in case we have a significant ice storm and people need fuel. We have pretty much the only one here in Wapaka. If we are required to do that at outlying shops, either the county highway department makes the decision to absorb that expense, or someone funds us to have backup generators at all our outlying shops. Next. But let me just say that if we take a loss in fuel handling, it gets absorbed in our shop operations. Next. Let's talk about shop operations. So shop operations is the cost of having a building, mechanics, facilities all within our mechanics work area. And we also included the area up on top, which is an area where we use to power wash all of our equipment, clean it before maintenance. Sometimes we clean it after a construction project, but we have to account for that space, the square footage space. Next. Next. A little bit more in depth, a little bit more figuring, but how do we calculate our shop operations? We take the direct labor of the mechanic plus the benefits, and we charge that mechanic's time to a piece of equipment. So if he's chargeable to a piece of equipment, it covers his costs in the shop operations. So I'll just go through it as you understand. It's immediately recovered once they're chargeable to a project. The project may be just fixing a truck or that unit number. That's an expense to that truck. So the direct labor plus the fringe benefits minus the work recovered should equal zero. The direct parts subtracted by the cost of the truck paying for that should equal zero. Then we have the cost of indirect labor, which is a foreman it could be our foreman, it could be our parts and receiving specialist. Jan is our account clerk. They're all chargeable to this cost pool of our shop operations. The depreciation of the shop equipment is a cost. The purchase of shop tools is a cost. And the square footage of our buildings and grounds allocation of depreciation is a cost, right? How do we account for those costs? We have to put a shop overhead invoice on our invoices to others to recover it. And so our indirect labor over the past several years was in 2016, 187,000. In 2020, it's 233,000. I try to make sense of how does that affect our operations? What could be going on that we're having more indirect labor than we did in 2016? Why are the mechanics not chargeable to the equipment like they were before? And it's, I think, a direct reflection is that we have so much crap equipment lately. We've been investing a lot in equipment. The mechanics are less chargeable to fixing it a lot. Therefore, there might be a slight increase in indirect labor. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what it's kind of telling me. Our 2020 expenses for shop operations was $837,000. The 5-year average was $537,000. A big portion of that, the buildings and grounds, and how we take that buildings and grounds, that square footage, and have to use shop operations to account for that new building. And also you have to take out your inventory adjustments. You can see our inventory adjustments annually in 2016, 17, 18, 19, and 20. You're looking pretty good in 2019. There wasn't a whole lot of inventory adjustments. What are inventory adjustments? Bolts, nuts, maybe some antifreeze, maybe something that we did not write off back in 2019 when we sold our old shop, but it's accumulation of adjusting the inventory within our shop, right, Chris? The total shop operations to be allocated is divided by the direct labor and the fringe benefits. It spits out a rate that we charge on our shop overhead invoices. And so the sheriff's department this last year took a shop invoice overhead rate of $139.67%. And so that's what we're tacking on to our invoices to recover the cost of having a shop. Any questions? It's busy. Next. Here's how we calculated where we're at. Next cost pool, pit and quarries. Next. So our pit and quarries operations are all costs associated with having pits and quarries, including transferring material, shop to shop, making sand, salt, pit restoration, crushing, permits. Right now, we had permits for the Collier pit over by London. We had to, that was only like $100 and some dollars for that permit. But we have to keep that updated in our reclamation plan. We had the Griffin pit that became a new one. Now it's closing out because we're not going to be extracting sand for construction projects. There's some permits and fees in designing that reclamation plan that gets billed to pit and quarry. So how do we recover the costs of having pit and quarry? We set the price of our salt sand. So one thing I would start over here to the left is in 2020, we had a recovery of $115,000. Our 5-year average was $247,000. Makes sense, Chris? I just want to double check it wasn't an under recovery.
Those had been an under recovery based on the gains and losses there.
63. So we had a loss of 48,000 this year.
So in 2020, we had a recovery of 115,000.
But our expenses were up on the top right there,
Okay, yep.
163.
All right, makes sense. So here's our recoveries. Here's our expenses in the upper right. It shows our loss of $48,000 in 2020. Guess what happened? It didn't snow in 2020. We didn't sell any sand, and therefore we don't recover our expenses of at least having that availability. It gets absorbed out of the enterprise fund if we take a loss. Next. Here's a breakout of our pit and quarry operations. Next. Our bituminous operations have been doing very good over the last 5 years. Knock on wood, we set the right price for our pavement and how we charge it up. We approved that today. Next. Bituminous operations cost pool is all costs associated with having bituminous operations. It includes transferring material such as catching mix to outline shops or bringing it into our shop, making the patch permits. If you can recall when we had the Teal pit and we were going through legal discussions and all that, that all got invoiced or billed to this cost pool. So it's fluctuated a lot over the last couple of years. Overall, our asphalt price per ton helps us recover it. Today, I had this as a question mark of $44. We set it at $44.35. Our gain or loss in our bituminous operations, for some reason, has always been offsetting our pit and quarry. So them two always seem to balance one another. For whatever reason, it's hard to tell. But this year in particular, 2021, I hope we sell a lot of asphalt. We do a lot of work for towns, and it snows a lot.
Do you think any of that money is going to show up that's supposed to be coming for infrastructure? They said a certain amount of million was for roads. I thought I wrote it down. 113 billion they think is going to go for road building out of that $1 trillion or whatever is coming.
It will only benefit Wapaka County if we're able to perform the work ourselves.
But if it goes to townships, don't you think it'll go to town roads too, or everything?
If they can utilize our services and don't put federal restrictions on it, saying that only a private contractor can perform the work, which happens a lot with federal money,
Okay,
and it won't benefit us. It will benefit us in the long run if we have to hire private contractors to fix our roads for us. But I don't know. I don't have an
no,
opinion. on it.
that was in the back of my mind. I was just wondering if it was all gonna go to private contractors versus some of the stuff we do for the state and federal, you know?
I'm sure it's not gonna go to us not having any snow
No,
and taking a loss on that. That's because it's our own individual decision to have that many outfits all over the town. Next, we'll talk about our brine operations cost pool. Next. Salt brining in Wapaka County cost pool is newer to us. I've experienced it for years with Shawano, and the more you put down, the more money you recover. Next. So brine operations are all the costs associated with brine operations, including transferring material. For us, we transfer to outlying shops. We've got 2 brine trucks now, or we're gonna have 2 brine trucks. It's utilities if it's metered separately, which we meter our water separately for brine. A little note off here to the left is that it's important to note that no salt can be included in the cost pool. It's assumed that it's state salt for the state brine. Because the state already purchased the salt and put it in the state salt shed, we use that. So we can't recover it since it's already been recovered once before. And that's the salt used to make the brine. We have to set a price per gallon on to recover our costs. So we bought $13,000 worth of salt tanks last highway committee. We have to recover those costs. And I don't think we do it all in one year, do we? We do it over a period of time. And I don't know how long
It's 15.
how long we depreciate brine making equipment. So any over or under recover in our salt brine operations is recovered by us setting the price of brine the following year. And so we started off earlier when I had first started here, we were buying our brine from Portage County. We were trucking it in here and then we were replacing it on our roads. The state was demanding more and more and more. We want more salt water sprayed on our roads, more salt put in the trucks to pre-wet the salt and the sand or the sand. And so having them operations in here has been instrumental. It's been very good for us to, I don't know how many gallons we placed last year, but it was quite a bit compared to the years past.
85,000 gallons.
85,000 gallons. All right,
We put almost that down already this year.
next. Next. Fringe benefit cost pool. Next. What are fringe benefits? It's the direct labor of our equipment minus the time off with pay. So if you subtract when people are off, I'm just gonna write off here, but it's when people are not at work. And so when they're not at work, that includes, they might be on sick leave, vacation, holiday, other paid off, longevity costs, retirement costs, health insurance costs, workers' comp costs, and safety shoes are part of a fringe benefit. The cost of having an employee beyond their direct payments. What we do to recover the costs is we have a fringe benefit rate that we tack onto our invoices. And we had a lot less invoices in 2020. Any over or under recover is included in the enterprise fund and carried over into the next year's rate. And so if you have a bad year, you could have a good year by upgrading your fringe benefit rate based if you made or lost money the year before. Our fringe benefit rate in 2020, you've got here is at 59.84%. Our average rate for fringe was 62.49%. We're right on the average for over the last 5 years. So we're doing all right with that. Next, there's a breakout of it. Small tools, another cost pool that is smaller, but it's important to understand the functionality of it. Next. Small tools are defined as any item purchased or built for use on multiple field projects and which costs less than $5,000 typically. And we're going to talk about a high cost that we had, which is purchasing our GPS equipment 3 or 4 years ago. And so this might be your pails, your shovels, stuff that the state doesn't recognize that has its own individual hourly rate, or it can't be charged out. It's just considered an incidental piece of equipment needed on the project, which could fluctuate within department based on the services they perform. Some counties don't have paving crews and therefore don't need to buy shovels. Therefore, they probably have a smaller field small tools rate. How it's calculated, the labor for repairing those small tools, chainsaws. We hire Pedkey a lot to repair our chainsaws up at the Larrabee or the Helvetia shop. Our expenses in 2020 were $71,000, which is down from the average of 85,000. And our average is high because we purchased that surveying equipment. So if we wouldn't have done that 4 years ago, we would not have as high of an average. You subtract out the allocations that we invoice out to our customers to collect our small tools. So we put a small tools rate. We invoice ourselves,
Everyone but cost pool.
state, towns, but we don't invoice the cost pools of the field small tools. And so if we make or lose money, it comes out of our enterprise fund. Next. Here's a breakout of our small tools.
2017 was only purchased that, it's 102,000.
Right here, yeah, this is the big purchase in 2017, which raises the average.
If you go down to the bottom, that year's fringe benefit rate then because of that purchase was 4.58%.
Next.
Went down the next year.
All the towns are hiring us to go survey, and even our other departments are using Kyle and his instrument, so it's phenomenal. Machinery operations, it's a whole nother. You want to make or lose money in equipment operations, have a bunch of plow trucks and don't go plow stuff. Here's the revenue that we generate is based off of the hourly rate set by the state, which is set by an average of all the different types of equipment out there. It can even be different. A single axle is different than a tandem, different than a tri, different than a quad axle. Graders, different sizes of graders, they all have their own individual rate. And the state of Wisconsin does a survey from all counties annually and says, what did it cost you to maintain that individual piece of equipment? Because it's classified in a different bracket. And then they tally that all up and they spit out that survey and they say, Wapaka County, Milwaukee County, Iron County, here's your rate for that type of piece of equipment. Whether or not we made or lost money on it, they take an average based off of its rate in the expenses in the entire state. What offsets that revenue? The repair, labor, and fringe benefits to repairing that equipment. Again, the mechanic's chargeable to a certain dump truck. That's an expense to that truck. The fuel use gets charged in that rate. Lubrication, oil changes, repair parts. So we don't want to smash anything, obviously. Sundry and insurance, miscellaneous items, bolts, nuts, lug cap, covers to be in our miscellaneous stuff, annual depreciation, and then our shop overhead can absorb an expense in our machinery operations. And so we got to find out if we want to have a profit or a loss. And in 2020, we had a loss in our machinery operations, calculated right now to be double checked is $256,000. Our 5-year average, we were made about $259,000. The profit or loss comes out of the enterprise fund. Generally speaking, you could add the profit or loss to annual depreciation to arrive at a rough figure for future equipment purchases. So us as a county, we look at the depreciation of our equipment plus the profit we had from the previous year, and we say, all right, based on how we did as a county, we should be spending roughly this amount of money. Well, we already know that we've committed to buying a new paver this year, and we've already got 2 trucks ordered, but we had a horrible 2020. How will that affect our overall enterprise account? It's going to hit us hard.
Taking a close look.
Because we've made that commitment to purchasing them 2 trucks. Next. Could you go back to that one?
Yep.
So in our machinery operations, we kind of blew it up and showed which years did we make a lot of money or which years did we have profit and which years did we have losses. I broke this out individually for the townships, specifically on machinery operations for winter versus summer. In 2020, we lost about $14,000 for our summer activities. The rest was all a loss in our winter maintenance. Next. Capital purchases is the decision making on not only our full-time staff, but the highway committee. Next. Our capital purchases starts with our beginning enterprise fund. Then we determine if we had an equipment profit from the previous year, calculate in the equipment depreciation, and then whether we had an over recovery of our cost pools. Then what spends that money is buying equipment, improvements at our outlying facilities, major repairs to our buildings, and you may have an under recovery in a cost pool, which is unfortunate. It shows the bottom line. The remaining stays in that enterprise fund. And so year after year, we're seeing the enterprise fund drop. The bottom could drop out of it if we don't make some changes internally on decision making that we do here. But I have to say that whether it's been on a construction project or an equipment purchase that we've done in Wapaka County, we've significantly improved our situation. Our brand new facility, we've got a lot of nice equipment. The struggle bringing this operations up to where we're at now, I'm not double checking the decisions have been made and they were for the right of the best of Wapaka County, but it comes with a huge expense. So that equipment supports essentially 13 county plow routes, 13 state plow routes, 20 municipal plow routes. That equipment supports our construction operations during the summer, including the towns and municipalities that hire us for it. So if the iron isn't moving, we're not generating revenue. Again, I put in here, we maintain 333 miles of county roads, 572 miles of state highways. What can significantly hurt us is if we have lack of municipal support. It's not on the towns or Dick Rowan that it didn't snow. It's not his fault. But guess who takes the hit on it? I still have an employee in a truck that I have to pay for, even though the towns aren't hiring it. So we're hoping this summer we get as much work as we can, and that it snows a lot this fall. Next. That's a breakdown of our capital purchases. Next. 50-50 local bridge aids. Now it's going to kind of speed up on us. In our transportation services fund, remember, now we're moving over to that other bubble that was over here earlier on. Remember that? We're talking about transportation services fund and 50-50 bridge aids, which was that big block in the middle. 50-50 bridge aids is nothing more than the county levying tax dollars from the participating municipalities. Annually, it's collected to be about $53,000 a year. That $53,000 a year comes from the townships and comes from some municipalities that participate in it. And that's what builds this pool up. What takes money out of it is the towns or municipalities asking for the 50-50 cost share on 36-inch diameter culvert pipes or larger ones. And you guys all know the process. Next. Keep going. Routine maintenance is a big part of our transportation services fund. Wapaka County is divided into 4 separate sections. At least that's how we administer it. It's overseen by our four foremen and our operations manager, Hank, our patrol superintendent, and myself. We're all overseeing it, but and making decisions. But I wanted to talk about how we break it into 4 different quadrants. And that's why we have 4 outlying shops. It's a level of service we provide to our constituents in them areas so that when it snows, we aren't driving everyone from Wapaka up to the town of DuPont or Larrabee or Matson to plow snow. The level of service we provide is having a hub right there by that area of our county. So in our routine maintenance, we budgeted $2.1 million. We expended right around $2 million. We had about $117,000 remaining in our routine maintenance. Next, which is different from winter maintenance. We keep that separate as well. So in 2020, in winter maintenance, we budgeted right around $1 million. We expended about $718,000. That left the remaining balance about $333,000. I wanted to point out in winter maintenance, from January to June, we had charges of $556,000. But then in the last half of the year, we only had charges of $161,000. I think it snowed like right around Christmas. That was about it. So next. Marking and signing is another cost pool that we monitor annually. We set a budget. We had a budget of $215,000. Our expenses were $185,000. There was a remaining amount in that cost pool of $30,000. Next. Oh, that last one was, I'm sorry.
That was right.
That was marking and signing. The next one's bridge maintenance. We overexpended in bridge maintenance category last year. We did some improvements on bridges in New London. Remember, we chip sealed some of those. We did a lot of things that I think were for the benefit in our bridge. So justifying the $40,000 over expenditures is doable. We capitalized that big bridge painting project over the Wolf River, right? That didn't come out of maintenance. That came out of its own individual project. But I know that we had an overrun for the oversight and engineering of painting that large bridge project last year. That bridge was supposed to be painted for the last 10 years. And it got done last year. So we probably saved about a $2 million bridge by painting it from coming into degradation of the iron beams underneath it. Next. Our salt shed maintenance is a portion of our transportation services fund cost pool. We budgeted about $50,000 for salt shed maintenance. Our expenses were $36,000. Next. Wetland mitigation bank, totally new. We're hoping that this generates a lot of revenue to our transportation services fund in the future when we start selling the credits off. Yesterday, the draft prospectus got sent to the Corps of Engineers, DNR, and the Environmental Protection Agency to review the first draft of what we're going to do at our mitigation bank. So we had some expenses in 2020. I budgeted $25,000 for the year, but when we got out to the O'Brien wetland mitigation site, we had to create some micro topography. We had $13,000 in seeding of special seeds that had to be planted out there. So we overran the budget in the O'Brien or the wetland mitigation cost pool of about $42,000. There were some expenses that took place out there that I just didn't know how to forecast for them, but it had to happen. And now moving into 2021, we're going to start the mitigation bank out here at the Wapaka River wetland site. We have to account for those costs up front. Any revenues generated will offset the expenses. So we're keeping them as their own separate project. Next. Our year-end allocations. So at the close of the year, our adjustments are made according to the DOT's uniform cost accounting manual. Adjustments recorded here affect the transportation services fund. It's overseen by our account manager, our account office manager, finance director. I help with input. Greg helps with input. Hank, Mark, all of us are in it in some way, but this is where we're heavily relying on our accounting staff to help us with this one. In our 2020 allocations, excess revenue of $125,000. Total year-end adjustments in last year was $210,517.75 or an expense to the enterprise. Next.
So adjustments, that was just things not planned on and surprises or?
It's our excess revenue for equipment
Mhm.
that we increase our rates. Now going to be 8% for other users other than the state.
Yep.
So that's a credit back to the account. Inventory adjustments, plus or minus.
Okay.
And our portion of equipment storage. So that $270,000 that we talked about earlier
Okay.
is covered.
Busy. It's a busy program. Next. Road construction is a big part of our transportation services. Lee had a good question. How the heck could you, why was the budget at what it was last year? I only thought we were spending 4.5 million or something like that. So we'll talk about that a little bit more in depth here. So Wapaka County, we have an internal goal to reconstruct about 2 to 3 miles of road, total reconstruct. Those are the ones that can't support a 22-foot wide pavement. That's a cost. Road construction includes full subgrade reconstruction, pulverize and repave projects. I know QBI.
And
There were just some of them this year. Highway O has the first man of asphalt. This budget's overseen by myself, Greg, and our construction and paving foreman. We're like the main four, including our patrol superintendent. The budget may have increased from the original budget as it passed in the fall. If non-lapsing projects were not completed from the previous years, and we were approved to carry over those. And so remember in 2019, it rained a lot. We didn't get Highway I finished. And so money did get carried over from 2019 to expend in the year 2020. It says that we overspent $641,000 of our budget. That's a true number. Some of it was planned, as we were seeing in the fall that there was, we were crossing our fingers that if we aren't charging our time to winter maintenance or routine maintenance, those dollars can help offset some of the costs in road construction. And if you recall, we had $333,000 of unspent dollars in winter maintenance. We had $117,000 unspent in asphalt overlays, replace the culvert pipe. So some of it kind of helps us out. That still puts us over budget. And so you have to reflect on what happened that we had overruns. One of the big ones was resetting the Spalding Creek box culvert. That was an expense that we charged to road construction. We had flooding in the spring on Highway O when we were doing them box culverts. We had to bring in a crane and sheet piling. That was all in an additional expense to overrunning. We dug out County Highway I from Airport Road to the east, which wasn't anticipated. And then when we were digging out County Highway N's subgrade, we found underneath the road, everything was topsoil and rocks. And so there was a lot more breaker run added for miles through them sections. And internally, we have to adjust. How are we going to be able to afford that and not budget for it? Well, internally, we're talking about more geogrid, more matting, less breaker rock, which is less trucking, less cost of materials. And we're going to build these roads, maybe not to the perfect standard, but we're going to do our best to build them to a financial standard with using some engineering. So there's a balance on how much we want to stick into our road projects if we come into a mud hole. Next. And I got to say that the road construction projects since I've been here have turned out phenomenal. And by the way, we've been attacking the ones that have been just absolutely ignored and were shit for years or in very, very poor condition. So we're going for the worst ones. And those are the ones that can't support a 22-foot wide asphalt pavement and 2-foot shoulders, which is the standard in today's transportation FDM, Field Development Manual. Next. So a summary of our transportation services with the 5-year average. You can look and say that total county maintenance for 2020 was about $10,117,000. Our budget was right over here, 9.9 million. We overran our construction budget over $210,000. But if you kind of look over here to the right on how our 5-year average has been doing, we've been actually underspending according to this chart of about 297,000. And when I talked to my peers years ago, they said, well, if you overspend one year, then underspend the next year. You can kind of see that correlation going on with construction projects. Next. So to summarize this whole slideshow, in our highway operations fund, incoming revenue is the prior year's balance. PBM variances, whether we made or lost money on our performance-based maintenance projects. over recovery from years cost pools, which 2020 did not have a lot of that. Leftovers that we had from the Transportation Services Fund, which is non-lapsing sometimes, that has to get approved at county board. You're gonna take off this, yeah, we're gonna get rid of that right there. What are outgoing expenses? Capital purchases, major repairs to equipment, purchases with our PBM funds. We just bought a tar kettle or a hot box for we can recycle hot mix asphalt now, so we go patching with actually hot mix instead of using cold mix. Hopefully it lasts longer. Outgoing expenses can include the county's portion of equipment storage, buildings and grounds allocated, a shortage in our transportations fund, and expenses not recovered from this year's cost pool. Next, a summary of our transportation fund. The revenue that comes in is tax levy money collected to, typically we use that to support our road construction and paving projects. The DOT gives us the general transportation aids. What was that, like the last couple of years, 2.1 million, I think we get. It's so much,
2.2.
it's so many dollars per lane mile. We might get some grants that we've applied for, 50-50, not 50-50, but the 80-20 cost share stuff that comes in. Excess revenue on our equipment, if we had any. Transfers from the general fund have helped our transportation services fund in our poor years. What goes out, we have to pay for our county routine maintenance, our county winter maintenance, our marking and signing, bridge maintenance, salt shed maintenance, county construction projects, our mitigation banks, our annual year-end inventory adjustments, and the county's portion of equipment storage and building grounds allocation. And then when we pay the municipalities for their portion of the 50-50 bridge, that comes out of it. We're getting close here.
Yep.
So where did we end up in 2020? The incoming revenue and outgoing expenses showed that we came in. Oh, I'm sorry. We came in at prior year's balance of $12.4 million in our highway operations fund. Right now, which we're double checking yet, our ending balance was 12 million. That's a lot of money spent in a year, a lot of stuff we do. Where did we end up in our transportation services fund? Right now, we're tracking that we had a loss of $68,000. Where do we go from here? What does this story, which this story is called the books. I like it because you have to tell your story. And it's got different chapters of it, which are cost pools. Where do we go through here? We've determined it's necessary to take a quarterly approach with this exercise. You should see this every quarter, not just at the end of the year. As a highway committee, county board should see it annually, but as a highway committee, you should see this report quarterly. Sheriff's Department is took out of this conversation. We're going to invoice them monthly for their shop overhead. We're doing that annually. We need to adjust our fuel handling rate, our brine prices, our asphalt prices as we are able to. We need to resolve having a quicker turnaround within our customer invoicing and monthly journal entries into logos so that when we're sitting at finance committee, she can say we're as up to speed as we possibly can be. We're holding on to information, not sending it. Highway managers will have access to the entire process presentation. So I'm going to give this presentation to my foreman on up so that they understand that decisions that they spontaneously may make in the field to do something has an effect. It has to be accounted for. We're going to minimize the major repairs if possible and the expenses for 2021. We need to look for ways to increase revenue. We may increase permit fees. That doesn't generate a whole lot. Maybe double our administration rate from our locals from 2% to 4%. Negotiate the sales when the credits are available for selling. Hopefully, I'm really crossing my fingers. I'm not banking on it, but I think that's going to be huge to us. 60-40 brush cutting does generate revenue for us. It keeps our guys busy, but that's only with hand cutting with the chainsaws. We're by no means generating a lot of equipment on our revenue for equipment. And then maybe charge a winter availability rate to our towns like we do for the DOT. The cost to have these buildings to store all of these towns' trucks and stuff is a discussion to have moving forward. And we need We need to take a closer look at the level of service that we provide to our municipalities. What we've done through 2020, 2019, ever since I've been here, I can't say we've made a poor decision. A lot of what we've done has brought us to where we are today, but we paid for those improvements financially. That concludes my presentation. That's the same one I want to give to the county board or the finance committee, rather than just flipping through these books. And I need your feedback on how I did.
So now we've got this terrific amount of depreciation on this new buildings and the new setup on this property. How is that projected in the next years? That will be slowly decreasing, I imagine, as this property is depreciating. And so how will that play into our cost of doing business?
So as we have depreciation in 2019, I'm sorry, 2021, 2022, as long as we're not adding more repairs to this facility, I think the depreciation stays pretty solid.
same for
It stays
40
the
years.
same.
Is it like a 30-year,
It's straight lines up,
straight line 40? Okay.
40 years.
And how old was the building we were in on? How many years did we have that?
1938.
Well, no, but I mean, my question, I guess, is, are we doing it too fast? That we put all these expenses, you know, you
other
say
one,
40 years,
we had
50 years,
90
60 years.
The other one, we had 90 years or
We don't get to
80
choose
years. You know.
how long we depreciate over. It's only 40 years set by the state.
That's okay. All right. So that there's,
Depending on what the asset is, like buildings are 40 years, salt sheds are 25.
Yeah.
So
we cannot change that.
No, it's.
Make our book work better.
By the state.
Yeah.
I was just wondering,
Were we still depreciating that old building when we were there then?
There was
Parts of it.
depreciation costs because
It's because that was built in 1938.
By
we had
putting
made
in-
improvements along the way that we had.
That's what you're depreciating. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
That's the same story. We're talking about old plow trucks. If a plow truck after 15 years is depreciated out, but along the way you put a new motor in it, a new transmission, it's getting old. You got to keep sticking more into it. You have to still depreciate those expenses over the next 15 years. So that's why it's kind of imperative to get rid of stuff if you can afford to purchase new stuff when appropriate. And by no means were we in a position to handle all of this. Heidi definitely forecasted that this was coming by a brick wall, by seeing it after the fact, first planning for it a year ahead of time.
Your last thing of, you said ways that we can look at this, and we probably should look at that, at least a quarterly basis, if not more regular on a monthly basis of, where you said, if we double that 2 to 4%, you couldn't do that all in 1 year to your townships and whatever, but if you went up 0.5% each year for 4 years to get to that 4%, there's some things that we probably should talk about more on that sheet and probably look at that regularly. What if we're in a climate change where we're not going to have any snow next year in November and December again? And that's what knocked us out this year.
I'm afraid of next year. It didn't really hardly snow this year.
I know, but I'm just saying, we don't want to wait till we get hit between the eyes. If there's some other ways we can look at it, I don't know.
well, what adjustment we might have to make, I don't know, but I'm thinking if we aren't wearing the trucks out, snow plowing, maybe we can ease off on our replacement schedule a little bit as we're getting caught up a little bit now. How are we sitting on trucks? As the age?
We're terrible when I got on here, just terrible. Lee'll tell you the same.
Yeah.
I mean, how are we? Well,
We're doing.
brought
5 years.
on what we could in the last 5 years, but we also bought 6 used vehicles. We didn't buy all new ones, because our other stuff was 35 years old.
Right.
And you're also replacing a single axle truck with the triple and quad axle trucks. I mean, your truck is a lot.
We can use it all year though.
Well, true, but I mean, but it's, but,
So little had been done for a number of years on equipment.
If we want to replace
On the problem, right, Casey? That's,
2 or 3 a year to keep up with our 43.
Yeah.
In a given year, when we replace one truck and we have 43 trucks, we can say for that year that truck has to last us 43 years before we replace it.
Right.
That isn't possible.
No.
If we replace it too, well, then maybe we can get every 20 years.
and we were keeping old trucks, in the end just for replacement parts for our other old trucks because there were no parts available.
Yeah.
Take a ride out back before you guys leave and look at the lineup that's on the
There's
auction block.
7 trucks getting sold here on Wisconsin surplus soon, so they're all in the back, ready to go up.
Okay.
But I think if you go back to the very last slide there, the
Sorry, newbie,
no, what?
That's the one that I said we gotta look at more regular.
right, that one?
Right.
Well, the profit and loss, I think way, yeah, right there. No, like that one. Your ending balance and beginning balance. I mean, the beginning balance of the year is 12,400,000. The ending is 12 million. I mean,
That's what we're spending a year.
you're only talking $400,000 differential on 12 million. That's peanuts. You know, I don't know if we're worried about our balances too much, you know, yes, we know we got to control them and we got to watch them, you know, but if my bookwork came in at $400,000 on 12 million, I'd be damn happy.
And Lee, if
You know,
I think you're interpreting that information wrong.
Might could be.
I think the year.
Yeah, but I mean, even,
We spent $12 million compared to spending 12.4 the year before. That's what that's showing. That's
okay, all right.
Yeah.
Continue on that trajectory. I
Go to the Highway Enterprise Fund sheet way in the beginning. That's the balance that we're watching. We're watching the bottom line, our checkbook.
Which one are you looking at?
The one where it says the beginning balance of Highway Enterprise, it's way at the beginning of the slideshow.
But getting back to having the reports quarterly and monthly, that will help us to know where we're at and make a decision quicker before things.
The problem is on the trucks, in the purchasing of trucks, if you don't do it the year before, you don't get them till a year later.
Right.
And you don't have them built. That's the other side of that coin.
Keep going. What we're watching, and this is where I want to show you a spread right there.
That one.
Our highway operations right here. We were at 3.9 million. Now we're at 2.1 million. If I can get a graph that shows where we were at in 2015, 16, you're going to see this right here declining very, very fastly. A lot of it has to do with equipment purchases. I understand that. That's where we have to make the decision. And now tacking on depreciation of buildings, no revenue, we're hurting bad. We're projected to go broke in this. This is our checkbook.
Yeah.
Projected to go broke soon, 3 years from now, if we don't make a change by increasing our rates. The cost of having trucks and equipment. Do we decrease the level of service? Do we get rid of 5?
What rates can you increase? The state sets what they're gonna pay you for stuff. The townships only get so much money.
Well, I think we've done a little bit already with charging administration rates.
Equipment rate.
Equipment rate from 5 to 8%, that's helping. It should be up at 12%.
We need to figure out how to get that increased equipment rate spending on the towns for the winter and ourselves for the winter, because that 5% is not getting charged to us because of the composite rate. So
Dick will tell you, they give us everything they get, right, Dick?
Right.
Down to Bear Creek. I can't speak for everybody, but I know what he said, and I would trust him with anything.
Make a difference on what money the
Yeah.
highway department's got to work with, because that's where all the towns are gonna be spending their money.
So they're just gonna be getting less for their money.
I seen in
And I'm not saying we can't do it, but I'm just saying that's what's gonna happen.
and what I'm hearing going to the town board meetings lately is if it's a wash between the private contractor and the county highway department that provides snow plowing services, a lot of the townships that I'm hearing are giving the work to the private entity that resides within their township to try to keep, private business going within their town. That happened with Chad Bestel and in Helvetia. There was a decision where it was a wash between sweeping in the town of Dayton. They said, well, it's about the same. They said, just go with Falks because it's the same as the county. We provide all them services to Dayton. And then they just say, no, we want to go with somebody else. And then we charge $1,000 per lane mile to provide one truck in the town of, let's say the town of Larrabee.
Sure.
But then Dayton, for instance, has 3 trucks. Maybe our service agreement should be 3 times more than we do for those that we only provide 1 truck for. Now, that's the business side of it, to try to generate a little bit more. In Bear Creek, we're gonna steal their pocketbooks tomorrow if we could. I'm kidding.
There's nothing in it.
I'm harassing.
Gotta go to the town of Dayton, it's full.
So much money.
No, we gotta pick on it.
In the long run, how many years is it gonna take to get us, our highways up to standards? I mean,
It'll never happen.
yeah, see that, so if you got bad roads and we're 25 years behind, like I say, playing catch up, which seems to be what we're doing.
Right.
No county will ever, it's impossible.
Yeah,
Even if you get a 30-year lifespan on a road and we got 33 miles of road, I mean, every year you gotta reconstruct 30 miles, 10 miles. I mean, then you have to
Yeah.
also probably overlay 10 miles, mill and fill another 10 miles, chip seal 10 miles,
yeah.
all within 1 year, just to get that cycle.
We aren't alone. I'm talking to other highway
No,
commissioners.
no.
Shawano County says,
No.
in my 15 years of being highway commissioner, I lost just as much as you did, Casey, because they provide so much services that they're dependent on through the winter.
So basically, then sometime as a county board, we have to teach people that we're gonna have to levy more money from the taxpayer.
But we're already at our max capacity. There's no more level capacity.
Yeah.
We're at our top.
Okay. There.
Oh, where I hunt in South Dakota, they got one oil road besides the state and the federal roads. And he says, what do you got back home? And I said, all our roads are blacktop. He looked me right in the eye and said, you guys have money.
So this,
But the other thing is that you, like Montana, you got 3 million people that live in Montana and you got 3 million people that live in Milwaukee. You know, they don't need the transportation for
That's
the
right.
people to get from here to there because there's nobody there.
There's only
A
500.
difference.
I guess I just need to be,
50,000 in the state of Wyoming. That's it.
What does the sales tax revenue look like this year? Does anybody know? Is that the 0.5% that the county gets?
It's up.
You know why it's up? I'm kind of laughing about that because we're collecting sales tax online now. We weren't before. They're doing that now. Everybody thought the economy was doing so great here. I'm not so sure it's doing so great. We're just getting the tax revenue from the online sales.
we
Collecting.
have to move on to our agenda item.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Next, let's go to personnel. I had one employee today ask me to help him write his retirement for June 3rd. So Kent Gerard is projecting to retire here on June 3rd, and he's going to turn in his slip as soon as he signs it. So I got one employee leaving. We're lined up for our summer kids. We got one that's kind of debatable. So we're doing all right on the personnel side of things.
How long has Kent been with us?
21 years.
Good.
So you're going to see a resolution come from an employee that's been here for quite some time. When it comes to agenda item number 8 for project updates, we're gearing up for construction. We've got all of our underbodies taken off other than like maybe 2 or 3. And we're using some of our underbodies right now to flush gravel off roads as we're pulling up shoulders. But our snowplow equipment is slowly starting to come apart. Doesn't mean we're taking the front harnesses off and can't attach them, or our sand spreaders. And if we do get a snow event, so we're still equipped and ready for that. I think all the wings got taken off most of the graders now, so that's something we may have to put on if we have a snowstorm, Evelyn. Upcoming meetings, April 8th, we have the Traffic Safety Committee meeting. That's where we meet over at the courthouse or even here. That's a quarterly meeting. Right? I think that was that one. That was the big one with Kim Bosquez. She coordinates that. Finance Committee is coming up April 14th. And then our next Highway Committee meeting would be here 2 weeks from today at 9 o'clock. And that's where I just wanted some feedback from you guys over time on how this report is, because this was just my guinea pig run at it. I want to update it so it maybe it needs to be shortened, maybe it needs to be lengthened. I don't know how your take is on it, but is this important to show? Of course it is to us quarterly, but this is the one I want to present to the county board. And I'll get feedback on that. Our construction projects, we've bought in right away or for the County B project, bridge replacement for next year. We are almost completed for buying the right of way for the County Highway N project for 2022. We're gearing up to have our first construction, or our first paving project to be Highway I. engineering on our box culverts. Westwood got that. I haven't gotten a lot of feedback on it, other than I know that the hydrology analysis is being completed. Wetland mitigation site project, the prospectus study got sent to the review team to see how they like our plan. I did email the State Representative Peterson on the condition of 110 again. And I got some feedback, which was good feedback, in that Highway 110 from Canadian National Railroad to the south junction of Highway 22 is one project. Highway 110 from 161 to the south junction of Highway C by the, must be the DuPont Cheese Factory is the project. There's another project planned from the DuPont Cheese Factory to Bertram Street in Marion. And then another one where they're going to mill and overlay some roads in the city of Marion. And that's all planned to take somewhere in 2026. And so 110 is being designed for that. Oh. Yeah. So that was the feedback I had on that. And then another thing is our County Highway B project. And we're working with our zoning department on a floodplain study. They've got some requirements to fulfill to meet FEMA reimbursement. And so we've been working with Ryan and his crew over there, a floodplain study on County Highway B for a project this year. We want to get the pipe replaced as soon as May 15th. And we've ordered that pipe. It is coming. And so we have to decide if we're going to increase or raise the road profile, which makes a determination on the floodplain study or hydrology analysis. So if something doesn't significantly back up because the pipe or the hole in the road isn't big enough, if we raise the road height, there's the potential for overtopping, like happened up in Ashland and Bayfield counties. They want to make sure that everything's good to go. So that if that pipe does fail in the future, FEMA will reimburse us for it if we did a floodplain study when that pipe got replaced. And so that might affect our towns that want pipe replacement projects. I don't know if it's going to occur to that level yet, but it's more for we call them our bad boys, our big bad pipes, the ones that you can walk through, not our little bitty ones. And so that concludes my reports for today, Joel.
Any other comments, questions? The motion to adjourn? Great week, everyone, and happy Easter and all those things that go with it.
Sure. Yeah. We're this weekend's supposed to be nice, and so